I now have the privilege to invite our next renowned speaker, who has also had a distinguished career in politics serving her country. Ms. Vaira Vike-Freiberga, you served as the 6th president of Latvia from 1999 to 2007, the first woman to hold this post. Former UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan, named you his special envoy on United Nations reform. Today, as a member of and former president of the Club de Madrid and co-chair of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, you continue to advocate for the ones left behind, as well as democratic leadership and effective global governance. It is my pleasure to invite you to speak, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I start by congratulations to all who have organized this conference. It seems to me that not just the 75th anniversary of the foundation of the United Nations, but the current world situation make it amply clear to everybody that leadership, and particularly global leadership, is very much needed. And at the same time, what we see in the public media, and that is what I'd like to address in these introductory remarks, there's a singular lack of faith in leadership. We see two very contradictory movements. On the one hand, everybody clamors for leadership, and we in this conference are among the most prominent to do so. And by the way, congratulations to the World Academy of Art and Science and its leader, Dr. Gary Jacobs. It was his idea to convince United Nations in Geneva to undertake this year-long program on studying leadership. Leadership is seen in a variety of different ways. Throughout history, it has been, as Madame Calmy-Ray pointed out, a matter of strong men talking to each other and deciding events, or more often than that, strong men fighting each other and their armies to see who could kill more on the other side, occupy territory, acquire resources, acquire power. And today, if we look around in the world among the members of the United Nations, we see a great many countries still where you have a strong leader who either legitimately elected or by changing the constitution has established themselves as a very strong leader at the top of a strong hierarchy, a vertical of power, where decisions are absolutely and without objection taken at the very top. And then the vertical of power lets them filter down, and the orders and the decisions are transmitted to those lower in the hierarchy. Everybody has a place in the hierarchy. They have a certain degree of autonomy. They have a certain amount of degrees of freedom in their actions, but the vertical of power is the most important. Then you have the, if you like, the contrary model, which is that of representative democracy. But in real life, of course, it is not so simple. Never is a vertical of power so fully established and strong that it does not have deviations from the orders from above, except for brief periods such as the Stalin's and Lenin's reign of terror, when by absolute brutal terror, or in Nazi Germany, for a brief period, absolute authority from above could be maintained. Representative democracy, on the other hand, delegates leadership responsibilities, both responsibilities and initiatives, by electing its elected representatives. But no later than yesterday, I was reading somebody in the media having an interesting essay about how, in their opinion, representative democracy was not doing the job. The job, in fact, was not being done because representatives that have been gained their positions through elections had lost the trust of the populations had lost the respect of the media, were not anymore able to do what their constitutions had meant them to do. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an extraordinarily serious complaint to make to representative democracy. Because when we talk about global leadership, when we talk about multilateralism, we are talking about representative democracy on a world scale. And if within any country, even a small country, the citizens cannot accept the very basic principles of what representative democracy is all about, how can we possibly hope to have at the level of the United Nations, at whatever level of global governance, a respect for the decisions taken, a respect for the persons in a position of responsibility, and most of all, respect in the ideas that they represent. And this is where I think it is so important for this particular conference to be co-organized with the World Academy of Art and Science, because we do, in this day and age, rely very heavily on expert opinion. We are deluged by masses of information and by equally vast masses of disinformation. How does the ordinary citizen sift through it? How does the ordinary citizen know whom to choose as their representative, whom to support as a leader of thought or of action? We are faced with a need for understanding, for analysis, for the gathering of facts, for interpretation, for a placing in context. All of that is the privilege of the scientific method. And this is why scientists of all ilk, and not just nuclear scientists and astrophysicists and biochemists, but humanists and philosophers and trained minds in general are needed to feed into the public domain clear ideas, well-argumented ideas, ideas supported by evidence, ideas verified by a contact and checks with reality. At the same time, what we need is a renewed confidence in the representative democracy, in the sense that not everybody can do everything. We cannot have just civil society ruling a country. We cannot have representatives of interest groups all by themselves take over government. I know this from my current experience of the Lancet COVID-19 experts group, where I am co-chair of a subgroup about those who have been the most affected by the pandemic. And in our debates, it's very interesting. What we are finding is that somebody who is an expert and who has been working with gender inequality tells us our report should see everything through the lens of gender differences. Somebody else has been working with children, and they will tell you the children are the most vulnerable of all groups possible. They are our future. Without them, we are lost. We should present everything through the lens of children. Then we have those who talk about the refugees and the displaced, and some even remember about the aged who are actually the ones in this particular case hit the most heavily by this pandemic. And what happens? We have to have a common view that brings everybody together. We must have not just a hierarchical, a vertical of responsibility and power, but a matrix, a complex matrix into which we have to feed the different, if you like, silos of information and of need and of necessity, but we cannot allow them to remain silos. They must be interconnected, like the neural networks in our brains. Each network is connected to an incredible multiplicity of other networks. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is in that perspective of a matrix of needs, of necessities, of ideas presented, tentative ideas to be tested and to implemented, that we should be looking at the world. And it is a system where politicians, elected representatives, have their place. And when they are found to be wanting in their inability to face up to reality, in their inability to accept the facts on the ground, in their inability to take significantly proven advice from their advisors, then hopefully, not always, the population will ask for them to be replaced by others. But international, supranational organizations like the United Nations should be open to input from the nation states that have been at the basis of their foundation and their representatives. But thank you very much, United Nations, for all that you have done with all the agencies that you have that try and bring together in a complex and useful matrix all the other branches of society, including civil society, interest groups, those who are definitely left behind, and their possibility to have their voices heard. Thank you very much for what you do. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very successful and fruitful conference.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you for your kind words toward the United Nations, a very rare commodity these days. But mostly, especially thank you for your profound observations, which provide an important basis for the forthcoming discussions.